Slow down, you move too fast. Gotta make the morning last. Kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun, feeling groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum, feeling groovy.
Well, welcome everybody to the bridge. We are on episode 96 today. We're getting up to the 100 level, and we have John Clark with us this morning. John, I'm going to let Sandy give us a quote, and then I'm going to kind of give the floor to you. You can kind of introduce yourself, okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. Sandy, what's our quote this morning?
Good day, everybody. Glad to have you join us. Our quote for to hurry. No need to sparkle. No need to be anybody but oneself. And that is by Virginia Woolf.
Okay. I don't imagine Virginia Woolf did sparkle, but
She was pretty.
lots of people that do. Yeah. Okay. Well, John, welcome. We're so happy to have you here today. And I love the name of your company, Best Days Consulting. And we're all for those best days.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me on. I've watched several of your old episodes, and I just want to say I love the intro song. It reminds me of my good buddy Tony and I growing up listening to a lot of Simon and Garfunkel. And so it's pretty nostalgic for me. So thanks. Yeah, my name is John Clark, and I am an educator by trade. I was a teacher, came out of school to become a teacher and did that for a few years before. I think what hooked me later on was leadership and just the work of being good leaders and what that means for anything like schools or organizations or it really doesn't matter. And what I've learned is that so much about leadership transcends your organization type or your field or your focus. It's just about what you do to get the best out of folks. You can be the dumbest person in a room, but if you know how to get good things out of folks, then it really doesn't matter
right
what you're doing. And so I've over the last year, I worked in schools for a long time at a variety of levels: school principal, director of leader development, managing director of school turnaround, where I was kind of focused on just righting the ship in some difficult circumstances.
Sure.
But over the last year, I formed my own practice. And part of that is because I really wanted to be able to focus fully on the idea of developing and supporting leaders. And sometimes when you're in an organization, unless that structure is really defined, it's harder, and you end up often going to the fires. Yeah. And I want to help prevent the fires, I think. Sure. And so, so that's what I'm doing. And so working with a variety of folks, mostly nonprofits and schools, to support leadership at various levels, whether it's like board work around strategy, district work on implementing a new system, or individual coaching for principals or leaders. That's what I aim to do. Motivation behind the name Best Days. I was, end of 2024, really focusing on what do I want to do. The job and the place I was working, I didn't love. We were in Oregon visiting my in-laws for Christmas time. And my son, Ian, he just turned to me. He was 5 at the time. He said, I have a lot of best days. Like he was playing something on the park. And I love that. It's not like today's the best day or is a good day. It's like I have a lot of best days. Like this idea that any number of days can be the best one. Yeah. You don't limit yourself on that. And I said, that's number one, like really hilarious, and profound. And that's what I'm setting out to do is I just want to help people have, sometimes I think in school leadership, at least, but a lot of places, you just hope the next day is better than the one before it. I want to help people to string together a lot of best days, so that's kind of the goal. So
good. Out of the mouth of babes, right, John?
What's that?
Out of the mouth of babes, right?
I know. He drives me crazy sometimes. So,
That's what keeps you smart. Well, Sandy and I both are from the educator realm too. And it's really true. We have to decide to have the best days, and all the good old brain development stuff that's coming out is really reinforcing what we've known all along. We have to purpose and intend to make that day good. And as leaders, both in the classroom, in our families, and in administration, that's really what our job is. And a lot of people don't see that as being true, but it really is.
Yeah. And I also think, like, to your point, a lot of work on the self-help sort of stuff that says, hey, you got to help yourself have a lot of best days. And I think that's important. The other part of that equation is how much better is the world if we're doing that for ourselves, but we're also helping to make everyone else's days the best day. Right.
Sure.
Certainly,
absolutely. Yeah.
And one of the things that we've talked about many times is the fact that you have to be a leader of yourself first.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
you're and
talking about. Is taking responsibility.
Yeah. Leadership is all about influence.
Yeah.
And first we have to influence ourselves to have that best day, for sure.
Yeah.
And, in the classroom, it's so true. Whatever the teacher's attitude is, the kids follow that energy.
Exactly.
And I've had a couple negative leaders in my past. And I always tell people that, whenever either in the classroom, if I'm taking a class and it's like, oh my God, or else, somebody who's my principal or my administrator, I make a list of what I'm never going to do.
Yep. I hear that.
Yeah. So my question, I'm going to give you 3, but if you have a top one, I'd really like it. What is your, I'm not even going to call it favorite. What's your strongest leadership skill? And you can have 3.
Yeah. My strongest leadership skill, and one I'm getting better or trying to work on, I think is deep listening. And I'm focused on the fact that you said skill, right? Because there's competencies, right? But I think there's skills that help build those competencies. And so for me, deep listening is really important.
Yes.
For anyone. I always admire the people who are just so quiet and you're like, are they with me? Like, I'm not getting much from them. And what they're doing is they're just so disciplined in their approach to listening, right? They are just so with you and intent. And I think so much of, like, people's goals is to, well, I got to stick with the pace of this and the urgency of this and be ready to respond and have the answer right away. It's actually the people who have those, they're just listening. They're just taking it in. They're probably not even, like, nodding along because they're focused on listening versus those cues that we sometimes think we have to do. And then they pause after you're done. You're like, do they think I'm an idiot? And then they talk. And what you realize is, oh man, they really got what I said. And often that comes back with more questions, or it comes back with things they're saying, like, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm glad to figure this out with you. And so I don't know. I just think when people deep listen, when they're just so focused on not what's my response going to be, but do I understand what the person across from me is saying?
Sure.
The person feels really heard, but also I think it helps to move forward better with whatever needs to happen after that discussion or after that conversation.
Yeah, I love
I'm not great at that, which is part of why I'm saying I admire it and think it's so important.
It is important, yeah. No matter whether it's your son is obviously older than 5 now, but even 1 and 2-year-olds and grandmas that are over 100, one of the things that everybody desires is to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to be right if I know you really heard me.
Yep.
And it really moves us down from that amygdala reaction down into my gut. And I'm practicing empathy at a real deep level when I'm deeply learning. I know in LinkedIn, and actually another gal that we have on our book club, they use the word presence.
Yeah.
And they talk about how presence even goes before you into the room. And I know I used to always kind of try to clear my head and of all the stuff going on as a principal before I'd walk into a room, because otherwise I'm bringing all that anxiety with me.
Yeah. it's always been an important skill, right? I'm sure from in the course of human history, like the idea of deep listening and hearing people and understanding is important. But I mean, just how much more profound is it now that we see a world that has built itself on distraction, that has built itself on micro moments, that has built itself on kind of like addiction to a certain degree.
That's true.
Crazy adrenaline,
to build a skill that's I can slow things down. I can do things that are complex. I can take in things that are multifaceted and do that despite the societal desire not to let you do that. I think it's even more profound now, for sure.
Sure.
And I think you have to be really intentional about taking a pause, putting your phone down, getting away from a screen, to be able to think through, be able to know what you said, reflect. And I don't think that we have a lot of noise going on all the time, like you said, in our society. And I also think that communication has gotten crazier because we do it on a text. And we know that body language and all of that kind of thing is part of communication. And that, of course, gets sidelined because you're not actually looking at the person, being able to communicate with them as effectively as you would if it was person to person. And we think we've got this great realm of communication, but I think it's lackluster. Yeah. Anyway, it's not.
I like that. Lackluster.
That it's not what we think we think it's a better way to communicate. It's not.
Agreed.
As much as we try to teach kids strategic thinking and how to think for themselves rather than just react, it literally, if we fully listen and we can teach them to fully listen, that's teaching them strategic thinking with critical thinking. It's not, I mean, it's kind of maybe a sneaky way to do it. I never thought of that before.
I mean, how many of those things are ultimately, when we tell kids, strategic thinking or problem solving those are great, don't get me wrong, but how much of that is built on the idea of like getting the right answer?
Yeah.
Or having an answer?
That's true.
Versus just get curious.
Yeah.
Bring in doubt, doubt yourself. Not doubt yourself. I don't mean it like that. That sounds wrong, but you don't know everything,
Questioning, good questions.
Yeah. So I think you're 100% right, Sue. I think the more we teach kids and adults to listen, actually, we're going to see things like strategy and decision-making improve because you slow it down and get other inputs and go from there.
Well, and you said the word curious. I then am laying down judgment. If I really heard you, then I might be hearing something different than what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
And it really is, it's the skill of the curiosity and presence, deep listening are the skills of the future.
Yeah.
And so we're all on the cutting edge. We're right with you. Yeah. So I'm a little bit curious about your journey into entrepreneurship, because you started your own business. And tell me kind of, deep listening helps you there, but I'm sure there were a few other skills, that you have exhibited and maybe have had your whole life that drew you into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, for me, I know folks that they are serial entrepreneurs or they know they're going to do it. I have fallen into this current moment, I would say. But, the interesting part of that, I think, is that I worked in schools, like I said, for, over a decade and a half. And in that, I joined, a charter network in Colorado that was opening new charter schools quite frequently when I was, coming up through kind of the ranks, I would say, and had the fortune of starting one of the schools for them. So it was part of a bigger network. It wasn't so kind of independent on my own. It was framed in it, but I did have that experience of opening it from everything from how do we recruit our clients to how do we build the operation systems to how do we make sure there's the right desk in the building that we're going to get to occupy? How am I working with the other tenant, which was an elementary school in the building? How do I hire people that are right for what we're doing? And then like, how do I build this out over time? And never mind, of course, the things that you all know so well, which is just how do we get good instruction and good culture for kids, right? So in some ways I had that, but when I don't know if you all feel the same way, but I don't think educators are taught to think about what they're doing as entrepreneurial. I don't like you're not you're and it's within the school system and the school educator mindset, but it's also and then how like the world sees you. It's oh, you're a principal, like you're playing school, and I think people have good respect for principals, don't get me wrong.
No.
They don't then look at that and say, wow, that person's starting a business. They're they're combining operations with development, with product, with, I mean, you name it, right? And so, you're doing all that work and you're not thinking about it, and was doing it for a long time. I got to the point where I knew what I'm interested in is leadership development,
right?
Strategic work with folks more than running the day-to-day operations of a school. I've done that. I love that. It was great, but I was ready for that next thing. So when I got out, and I was kind of thinking, new stage in my life, do I want to get outside of education? Do I do just something different? And as I'm in the job field, like looking for jobs, I'm like, man, I have to recraft the way I frame the fact that I was a founding principal, and that I did all this work running essentially a mini organization. I mean, I had 55 employees. It's not that small, right? So that it speaks better to other industries. And so I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Why don't I just do my own thing? Like, why don't I just tell people, why don't I start, like, I can get less clients and not, and be my own boss and make a good life for myself without having to do that. And I've got the skills to do it. So in that way I fell into it. A few months into the job search, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm at a point, if the right thing comes along, I'll consider it. But I said, I've got the entrepreneurial skills. I just haven't named them yet. I joined a group called Indie Collective, which is run by a guy named Sam Lee that helps solopreneurs to help put together the steps of developing their work. And that certainly helped me to give frameworks to the things I already knew. But yeah, it's interesting because over the last year, it's not just the coaching side of it or the people development. I'm as excited about the development side of what I'm doing, whether it's marketing things on LinkedIn or doing a podcast with my buddy to put some thought leadership out there, to, showing up for conferences. I mean, you name it. I like that stuff. Certainly like the part that I get to do with coaching people and the actual client work, but running the business is exciting too. And I think for a lot of us, what I would encourage people is if you're in the midst of work, just know that there's probably things you're doing right now that are entrepreneurial. It's just nobody naming in that for you. And so me having done that, I said, well, I want to try this on my own. I'll see how long it lasts, but that part of it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Well, and running, I mean, it sounds like you are definitely a lifelong learner. You love to learn.
Yeah.
So, whatever you don't know how to do, you're willing to jump in and learn how to do it. And also as an educator, you are skilled in, not only kid learning, but adult learning. And adult learning isn't done as well as it could be. And so it's up to the entrepreneurs and the consultants out there to really lead adults into learning, not just bobbling their heads and, digesting information, not digesting information. So one of the skills that I put high on the list as an entrepreneur, and I'll bet you have it, and I'll bet you've had it probably since you were a kid, and that is getting to the edge of the cliff and jumping off.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's not the scary side of entrepreneurial. Where you're like, this isn't.
The risk taking, they call it risk taking, but it felt like that to me as jumping off the cliff.
There's a parachute on my back. In this
You're
John, there's a response that I wanted to share with you about education. So I come from the world of early childhood education. And when I started my career, you came up with a curriculum based on your kids, and you were creative and all that kind of thing. And then templates came in, and this is the way to do this, and that's the way to do that. And it became more rote because the creativity is strong. And I think that I have seen in society, even customer service and that kind of thing, there is a template, and people can't think outside of that template and figure out how we can make something better without having to say, okay, well, this is what the handbook says, and I have to stick with this. And they quit thinking on their own. And like you said, being able to problem solve on, on their feet. An example, my husband and I, my husband's in a wheelchair. We were in an airport, and all these gals that were standing around, I was having trouble getting my ticket printed, and these gals in their uniforms were all busy, having these pretty nails, and this is what we're doing. This is our template. This is what we're supposed to do. And I asked them a question. They said, oh, you can get your ticket printed clear over there. Well, I'm trying to get my husband and the baggage and all the other stuff in one place. 2 minutes later, a gal closer to our, in the same uniform style, came by and said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I need to get my ticket printed. She went right over. 1 minute later, had a ticket printed and brought it to me. Talk about a vast difference of what I was receiving, because the other gals were willing to put themselves forward, and they weren't trying to problem solve. And here's a gal that comes along and fixes it right then and there. And I think we see that a lot now, is that the problem, a human being that has a brain, think outside of the box and figure out what can you do to help the situation, right?
Yeah. I love that you're talking about a template there. And then, Sue, I'm going to get back to your idea on risk taking here in a minute too. But yeah, no, I agree, Sandy. And, I probably have a little bit more balance to I also saw the harm that a lot of times when we didn't have great things to give to teachers did to kids at times, because we were expecting people. It totally is. And that's where I think templates and guardrails in leadership, and we can talk about schools here, is so important, right? Like, I was talking to this guy yesterday or a few days ago on our podcast. His name's Andrew Robinson, and we were talking about the challenges of the management world right now. And the problem is management in many ways is about control than it is about development. And so he had this idea called de-envelopment, which I thought was interesting. Like, it's the idea of you have, like, it's literally like an envelope, and you're peeling back the pieces on people to help them know more about themselves and understand themselves better, so they can be the best versions of themselves, right? That's like what management to him should be. And so to this example of teaching, we swung in two far ways. One, it was like, we're giving you nothing. Yeah. Good luck. And that seemed to undermine how complex teaching is and how much it does help people to have guidance or support. Right. But then we swung it, and I've been part of districts who've done that, who said, here's the curriculum, do not alter from it. There we go. Like a formal written attestation of how you're going to do that and all this stuff. And certainly the balance is somewhere in the middle, and probably leaning a little bit more towards like the autonomy and the like knowledge of the person, of the teacher, right? We can say to them, here's your guardrails, here's the template. We want to stick within this because we know it works. Right. However, we also know, like, especially when it comes to human work, one applied thing is not going to work permanently 100% of the time, every time. No. It's not. No. And so
you take your passion out. There's no passion in
totally
being the curriculum. So yeah.
And so leaders that can find that balance, that shows like, hey, I believe in your autonomy and your ownership and your expertise, are the best. And people worry, well, what if we get someone who's not very good at their job? Well, then we have to have the courage to say that sometimes people shouldn't be in roles. Right. Like, I need people who can think on their own, who are passionate about it, who can certainly operate within guardrails. But if I can't find that person, then you're not the right person, right?
Right. Right. I had the discussion just with somebody just a day or two ago, and I know it's true for the two of you. I can tell people coming out of college whether or not they are going to be good teachers. It doesn't take me 2 years. And it's totally around, I call it organizational development and role and goal. But if you can't manage that classroom, blind classroom, because there's no teaching that goes on, and it's just, it's just sad. And there's so many people that don't like what they're doing because they can't do it.
Yeah.
It's
Right. And I think in any field that you're in, the good question is why. Ask why. Why do we do what we do? Because if you have that as your end result, then you find that passion, or you figure out what can I do to make it better. You care enough. You care enough to ask the question. Because those gals in the airport were not worried about why.
Yeah.
Well, Sandy, that reminds me. I don't know if you've heard it. If you guys have heard of this example, I meant to say this one too. And I don't know if this is true anymore, but Southwest many years ago, when I think now it's a little Southwest Airlines isn't as great in terms of some things, and they have some problems. But you would, 15 or 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, the customer care people thought it was really good. They were humorous. Like you'd get on a Southwest flight.
Right.
I know people didn't like oh, you have to stand in line and pick your seat.
Yeah,
But outside of that, they like the customer care, right? And I heard in their interviews what they would do is they would not just ask like basic questions for I'm blanking right now. What's the flight person comes that helps customers?
Right.
Anyway,
Attendant, yeah.
The what?
The attendant.
Yeah, the attendant. They would not just ask them, policy questions. They would say, okay, so here's the situation. The plane is grounded. What do you do? And they were looking for people who would get creative.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to give them snacks. We're going to tell a funny joke. We're going to offer blankets. We're going to, allow the kids. They were looking for people who were going to be responsive to the needs of people. But what you see on many airlines is, hey, sorry, we're grounded. We can't get you any drinks. We can't get you any food because we're restricted. They were looking for people who knew that they could push the envelope a little bit without like breaking federal aviation laws, obviously. Right. So that's what you need more of. Like, and I think in teaching, that's so profound in that you also, if you're a manager and you control people, well, what you're going to get is people who want to be controlled eventually. Right. And they're not going to think on their own. When there's complex situations, when something's operating in the gray, they're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Tell me. And you're going to be stuck telling them every time what to do. And that is exhausting. And it's not very fun.
No.
Well, like you need a framework. I think when you're talking about like your education, yes, you do need a framework. These are the expectations. This is what we're looking for. But I was in a position of management too, and I didn't micromanage my staff. I continually walked in their classrooms, saw what they were doing, had conversations with them, sat down with them. How can I help? What's the plan? They ended up they videoing themselves and being able to be the one to say, oh, this is the area that to them, but find out how I could align myself with them. So it wasn't like we left them on their own. But man, I love the creativity that I saw that was so outside the box of what that template told them to do, because they said, why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? How do I want to impact the children and the families that I serve? I loved it. And also then that flowed into teamwork. How can I help my next door neighbor? What can I do to be able to support control? I mean, you saw a paradigm shift when you came through, when you managed that way or led that way.
Yeah. I mean, questions that start with why and how are always better to me than what and who. You know what I mean? Because why is like, why am I doing this? It's more complex. And then how do I make it work, or how do I make it better is different than like, what do you got for me and who's it for?
Yeah. I remember a mentor of mine, and he was on the board of the private school that I was in. And we were interviewing people, and he said, well, I'm going to tell you a secret. He said, I ask somebody, I think of the fly on the wall up there, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I want to watch you climb out of it and figure it out for yourself. He said, I want to watch your thinking. And, those are, and with kids too, we want them to be leaders. They need to be leaders in the classroom. We need to encourage that, and we can't do that through textbooks that tell us exactly what to do. That's not what teaching's all about.
Exactly.
That's not what all of us went into it for.
Not at all.
But you're right. The jumping off the cliff is not taught in school. So tell me how it came up in you.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like, I toe the line between pausing and hesitating too long sometimes, and almost being overly like collaborative. Let's get as many voices in here. And I do that when I'm delaying decisions, and that's a fault of mine. Okay, we know what works here. Let's just go. We got to keep moving. Right. And that, the one puts you in it can put me in this paralyzed state. It puts teams in paralyzed states. Like, well, we're kind of hedging right now. Somebody has to make a decision. And the other one, I don't think what it didn't do is I don't think that desire for action, I don't think I was never like overly just, off the cuff sort of acting. So it was never problematic. But what it did is it didn't pause us long enough to get creative. We would say, well, I would do things where it's like, this has worked before, let's do it again, versus this has worked before, but I feel like we could do it better.
Sure.
And so, I try to balance those two, right, as much as I can. But ultimately, I am inclined towards action when it means like, especially when it impacts others. I think in my own work, if it's something that's just impacting me, I'll pause, I'll hesitate, I'll hedge. That's one of the tough things about being a solopreneur is like things that I know I want to do. But it's literally only impacting me and my ability to like market myself or whatever it might be. I wait on those. It's somebody else. And so like what I need to do is put someone else on the other side of that. They need this by this date, or they need this tool. Like I coach a buddy of mine who is in realty. And when he and I are talking after a session, he's like, man, I wish I had this. I'm like, boom, I get him a template right away and I make that thing for him. If it's me sitting here like, I could use this for myself, I don't make it. I just wait. I don't do it. And so for me, it's always about gearing my mindset so that I'm ready to jump off that cliff and get moving towards like who else is right now and how can I make it work right for them. Right. Even in my business, like certainly it's a lot about me and producing revenue for me and my family and work for myself. But I find myself more willing to jump when I'm like, great, I know the impact, the social impact of this is good, or the person that's going to help is great. Now I'm ready to fly, right? And so I try to put that mindset in place to help me with that cliff diving a little bit more, to your point.
How much do you rely on your gut, your intuition, or do you?
It's a great question. I would actually say it's intuition that is really founded in getting other voices. I definitely have like a point of view. It's never just, I would almost say it's never, I know what to do here, let's go. But I do think it is something that is, my gut is framed in kind of the collective conscious.
So you kind of miss some of the collaboration, but it sounds like you've got groups that you can go to.
Yeah, I think so. Or just like an awareness of like, who is this impacting? And if I think it's the right thing for folks, then let's go. I trust my judgment quite a bit I trust my judgment that it's the right thing. Where I sometimes stop short is the process to do the thing, the right thing. And that's where I can jump too quick sometimes. Right? If I'm making sense there.
Yeah. Well,
I guess the way I'm answering this question tells you I'm not a highly just like based on intuition sort of person. I tend to think a lot because I think I have a healthy amount of self-doubt. And sometimes people think I take that too far. But I just want to make sure we get it right for folks. And I don't always think of myself as the smartest person. I do think I'm really good at like connecting people and building their ideas.
Well, that's good. That's better than being the smartest person.
Yeah, exactly.
But decision making is the hardest skill to teach a leader.
Yep.
And I can't remember the leader that came up with the matrix of who's in charge of this decision.
Yeah.
But Sandy, we used it at your school a lot of, is this my decision to make? Do I want a little input? Do I want a lot of input? And I never used voting, but it helped people to realize they weren't going to make the decision. So it let them off the hook. And then I went ahead and did it, but I had some input.
Yeah.
That's hard. But one thing, I've been coaching now for probably 25, 30 years. And I used to be much more hesitant to use my intuition. And I don't know why it's my age or what, but now I just go for it. If something's telling me to tell somebody something, I do it. And the worst thing that can happen is that they disagree with me and say no.
Exactly.
And but I'm getting better. I mean, my intuition muscle is building over the years.
Have you guys you ever used the RAPID framework for decision making with teams, especially? I don't know the whole acronym, so we'll have to look it up. But rapid, each of the letters stands for a different thing. D is for decision maker. So you have the 5 letters R, A, P, I, D stand for different things. D is your decision maker. So you're the D. I is for input. Like, who are the people we need to get input on this? And then the other 3 I kind of blank on sometimes. There's like ones who's going to execute this basically when we make the decision. Who has veto rights is like one of the other ones, kind of. And so on. So there's others, but it's a great framework for folks.
I'll look it up.
When it comes to especially team roles in decision making, because it helps the person who is the decision maker to identify other key roles in it too. So it's not fully acting on your gut, but it also sets you up to know.
Sure.
And for people who manage other managers or leaders, it's a great way to set them up. Like, hey, I'm making you the D, but you're going to have to determine who all the other people are in this framework. So
yeah, that's good. It's good to have a framework. And I used to put this list on teams' agenda, on the back of their agenda, because then they would ask me, okay, Sue, who's making this decision? And most of the time I didn't say you are, or I'm delegating. Most of the time I said, well, I'm going to make it with a lot of input. So let's take 2 weeks and go out and get me some information, or, or this came down from above and I have no choice.
Well, I think, so you're getting into another kind of skill, or maybe it's a mindset that I really love to talk about in leadership, which is extreme ownership, right? And the thing about extreme ownership, to your point, is it's not just for the decision maker. Like, oh, okay, it's like, it's on the decision maker.
Yeah,
I'm done. It's about how you get everyone on your team to say, I understand my role completely and I own that role completely. I'm not going to allow, we're all going to have challenges when we're doing work. Like, there's going to be obstacles to overcome. There's going to be barriers in our way. People and teams that operate with extreme ownership recognize that and then say, and yet it is my job to make sure this thing goes extremely well. It is our team's job to make sure that we do not miss a beat in doing that. And I just love developing and cultivating that, because I think most of the world is actually about excuse making. It's what are the I worked with kids who worked in impoverished circumstances most of the time, and so it was easy for educators to come in and say, "Well, it's just too hard. The kids' home life is so tough, or they're 3 grade levels behind on this." The person who's an extreme owner said, "I'm so thrilled I get to teach these kids this year. That I'm excited for this. We're going to make some significant growth, and nothing's going to get in our way." Like, that's what you're looking for.
Extreme accountability.
Yes.
Yeah. That's absolutely fabulous. Yeah. The thing that I used was very helpful, just because of people knew their role. And, if they were on a hiring team, it was still my decision to hire, so that if it went, if it blew up, it was my fault. They didn't have to blame themselves for it. But it's important to have those tools. Now, I think it's really interesting. You said this at the very beginning, and I jumped into it with my brain. Hopefully it didn't distract me. I was trying to listen. But you said something about you liked being on the outside of the coaching, your own company, rather than being internal. And tell me a little bit about that. I'll tell you my story afterwards, but you tell me a little bit about why that is important to you.
Yeah, I think leadership development. So sometimes things are so small, or organizations are so small, that they don't have intentional leadership development programs. Some do. Certainly your really big ones do. Your Nikes, your whatever. They're going to have these kind of internal, like, departments of leadership development, right? Like, my sister works for a big commercial real estate firm outside of Chicago, and so they have all this stuff embedded in, like, her career arc of, like, being part of the program. But a lot of the places we work don't have that, right? And I work for medium-sized or small nonprofits and schools and organizations, where, like, my example is I came in as a director of leader development, and we were working to support assistant principals and principals to develop skills and get better and kind of create a career arc for them, but more just to be effective for their teachers. But that was disrupted in my year and a half. It was so disrupted. It was disrupted by, the people, because we were in this position. If a school left or was in turmoil, or a leader left or was in turmoil, or senior leaders especially decided, hey, we need to do this thing. So your team is the most flexible because all you do is coach people. You're not like running curriculum or, it's because some things are like, we can't change. It's true of any industry. Like, we're not going to get rid of the sales team, but hey, the leader development team, we can have you run to this thing because, it's just years on the surface to be a more flexible job. And I think it should be more inflexible. Hey, we're not going to, especially if you're decent at your job, and maybe I was terrible at my job, I'm not sure, but if you're decent at your job, we should not remove you. We should see you as immovable from that role as we would any other position, right? Because it's so important to the long-term health of our leaders, of our organization, and keeping people in place. Because frankly, like, rotating through your people, especially your leaders, is what creates not only the most like just dysfunction and turmoil, but it's an economic cost to organizations. And you're retraining these people. Schools, your teachers are like, what the hell? I don't even know who's coaching me this year. There's no continuity. And so to me, I just said, and that's where if the right job comes along that says, oh, I think they've invested this in the way, and this is the role I want, I'll do it. But I said, I think I can get into single site schools or small organizations or small networks of folks who may not have the capital to create something like this, but would want to contract with a person like me to help them with that and do it that way. So that's why. I mean, some of that's maybe selfish. Like, I wanted a better peace of mind of what my work could look like, or at least be the one to decide that versus others throwing me around. But then, and also thought this is a way to kind of, make that consistent for others as well. But if somebody's asking me not to, I can always cut it short and say, hey, this isn't the work I signed up to do with you. Right.
Well, and like I said, I've been coaching for years. And back when I was coaching principals as an external consultant, I was viewed as a spy.
Oh, that's awful.
Well, it was horrible. And people thought if the coach came in, you were in trouble. But what happened, and this even happened in the early childhood realm with ESDs and stuff. So I would meet with the principal, but I would only meet with the principal if I met with the person I was coaching, so that they always heard the conversation, because otherwise there was no trust.
Right.
And so there's much more trust if it's external, because you're not going to be the triangulator. And so that's really important. But in Sandy's instance, the ESD would come in with their little checklist, and they'd go visit the teachers, and they'd meet with the teachers separately. And then Sandy wouldn't know the ESD person might meet with Sandy, but we changed it so that Sandy was always at the meetings when they were giving feedback to the teachers. And it changed the system. And it needed to get clean because it was just a dirty system.
Yeah. And like you, I've been participants in those systems, and I'm getting old enough and I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Right. And I mean, I agree. I mean, a good coach, I think new coaches, or what I would want to teach coaches to do better, is you can hold people accountable and push them towards outcomes and have profound trust. But the way you get those outcomes isn't the scary, like, I'm your evaluator and I'm your boss. Like, a good coach can say, hey, you're just not doing the best you can, or you're selling yourself short. And people get motivated by that because they have radical candor with folks, not because of what I'm using as a crutch. And this is what happens a lot of times when people are kind of coaches and managers at the same time, which I think you can be. Personally, I think you can do both.
It's hard though.
It is, but you can do it with, like, I think one of the things we miss with new managers is we don't develop their manager mindset at the front end of, like, what type of manager going to be there. Instead, we get them into things like, I don't know, just real technical and tactical things about just like how to hold people accountable versus how do you both, like, strike the balance between high support and high accountability. And you have to define that for yourself, but that's our expectation for you as a manager, is to do that. And the accountability shouldn't be, hey, you'll get a low mark on your evaluation if you don't do this. It's, you're selling yourself short if you don't make this progress. Right?
Here's the data. What's the problem? Yeah, for sure.
One of the things that Sue taught us to ask is, what does support look like to you? Because a lot of times we assume what that should look like, and it may not be what that person needs. So that was always part of the tradition whenever there was something that I needed to address with somebody. What does support look like to you? This is what I'm seeing. We know that we need to get to another point. What does support look like to you? And then it made it a personal thing instead of just a pie in the sky thing from the administrator, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a profound question, and it seems so simple, but so
Right.
many people don't ask that question. Like, hey,
Right.
what's support like for you?
Mhm.
I believe as managers, we do have a role because of the position we sit in and the specific role we play.
Mhm.
Like, I only want to hire managers that I know have that ability to flex to the needs of their people. I actually think individual contributors that are kind of like set in their ways and so on, that's okay. Like, you might just be the engineer is going to be very different than the marketing person, and they might have a different way. Good managers obviously have to lean into your strengths as a manager. You have to know yourself. But if you're not able to kind of flex and understand where other people are coming from and bend a little bit to them, then you're not going to be very good at the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's building skills. It's building interpersonal skills with the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not often taught. You know, we don't teach people. We bring them up through the ranks, and what we assume they know how to do it, and they don't.
I mean, it's the biggest mistake we make. I'm a coach for an organization called Behavioral Essentials, and there's a new book out that we coach through called Blind Spotting. And there's an identity blind spot that Marty Dubin, the author, talks about, which is this manager identity blind spot. We promote people because they were excellent individual contributors. They were awesome at it. They were so good. So we're like, great, we're just going to get you up here and you're going to help replicate that in 10 other people. It does not work that way. And that's not to say people who are good individual contributors aren't going to be good managers, but you better make sure that they have the right mindset to be a manager, which is do it my way or control, or why don't you just replicate what I'm telling you to do? It's way more nuanced than that. And they're like, I was so successful at the other thing and I suck at this. What's wrong? And it's a different role, you know?
It is. Now, we used to have a book called The Peter Principle, and that's what it was all about.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
So I want to ask you, people who are either becoming entrepreneurial or they're leader of leaders, do you have a piece of advice?
I think, two different questions. I think if you're a leader of leaders, man, I think the number one for that specific question, leader of leaders, you better be the type of leader for your people that you want them to be for others.
Yeah.
And I like,
by example,
because I do think sometimes like C-suite or senior level leaders, they think, well, the way I lead middle level leaders is different than the way that I want them to lead individual contributors. Obviously, like, there's difference in roles and experience, so things are going to shift. But if I want you to listen, like, I hate it when organizations they're like, hey, oh man, we have terrible staff engagement at our individual contributor level, and we need to like create this whole new initiative to get them happy. And then what we've forgotten is that middle rung of the middle managers, where we just say like, okay, we've created a new initiative to make all these people happy, go execute it or be better at coaching. And at the senior level, you're just telling them what to do instead of taking the step back. Is like, oh, actually the bottleneck here is this work between senior leaders and mid managers, how we're communicating, how we get their input into things, how we get an understanding of what they're seeing on the ground. And back to our earlier point, helping them to say like, great, how are you adapting or being flexible to the needs right now? And if you work on that relationship, I kind of almost guarantee you that you're going to see engagement go up across the board because they're going to be better managers. So a complicated set of things, but I think if you're not asking yourself, am I being the type of manager and asking of these folks the same things that I want them to ask of others to create a healthy organization top to bottom, it starts there, right?
For sure.
As an entrepreneur, I would just tell people, the thing I've loved, I think back to the point, I don't know if it was Sue or Sandy that talked about, one of you was talking about curiosity. I feel like I have been able to lean more into my curiosity in this role than I ever was when I was in a W-2, where it was kind of like you knew your role and what you did. And I worked for some good places, don't get me wrong, but you get into a roles and responsibility, here's the org chart, kind of go and execute. But as an entrepreneur, the ability to go and meet new people, to join a podcast like this, when someone messages you and you see an episode, and you're like, I like those two, their vibe. Like, I'm going to get on there and learn from them. I don't know, if you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of stuck in this, I'm afraid to put myself out there, or it's kind of hard to connect with people, or I don't want to put that idea on LinkedIn, I just get over that. I mean, a lot of people, 99% of people are appreciative of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think too many of us are stuck of like, what if I look like an idiot or have egg on my face? And I think the world's a lot better than that. So I just would encourage people, get curious, meet some folks, get your name out there, get your ideas out there, unless they're mean ideas. Don't do that. But
Yeah. And the reality, John, is that there's probably a lot of people that are thinking the same thoughts or had the same questions, but they're too afraid to ask them.
yeah,
So I think being authentic with people, with our audience, I think they can relate to, oh, you know, I understand where that person's coming from. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's courage, but it's important.
Yeah.
to
So
do.
our final question, and I'll start with you, John, and then Sandy, and then I'll wrap it up, is what's one takeaway from our conversation today?
I mean, I think one takeaway is that I want to be more like you all and just reach out to folks that you're seeing what they're putting out there and bring them into conversation. And I know we've run across each other's stuff, but don't know each other too well. But I think when like-minded people who have ideas to share, get on things, you can have what felt like a very fast 50-minute conversation. You know what I mean? And like full of fun in life. And so
what we love to do.
I think I'm just like, from the setup of this, I think beyond that, I think it's, you know, I'm going back to this idea of like, how do we as leaders, and you both said this so well, help people to maximize their best while giving them the guardrails and the guidelines to help them there. But then even sometimes letting them break outside of those guides,
Right.
break outside of those guardrails, break outside of that template, and it's going to be okay. You know, and that's what people want. And you're going to be a better leader for it. You're going to like your job more. And certainly those people under your watch are going to be better for it too.
Absolutely. Sandy, takeaway.
Well, I would say that I mean, it's been wonderful, John, to have you with us today. And one of the things that I have enjoyed listening to is that you show a lot of confidence, but you're still humble in your approach, which I think makes people be able to come to you and ask the questions that need to be asked. Because when someone seems to think that they've got all the answers, and you said, you know, you work through that and you let people know, let's process and figure it out together. I think that's a wonderful way to help people find the best for themselves and who they want to be. So good job. Very good.
That's kind of
I'm hearing you have a very balanced approach. I like your language. You know, I like the guardrails and yet being open to. I like the fact that you are definitely a lifelong learner. And the one thing I know about learners is if I show my students, you know, or the leaders that I'm training that I'm a learner, then they're open to learn, because we're in this learning together, not I know it all and I'm going to, you know, do a head dump. So I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to invite you back.
Oh yeah,
I've got some. We've got some series going on, and you know, we'll be in touch. But thanks for coming on, and we're going to say goodbye, but I want you to hang on for a little system debrief. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you soon.